Well, it wasn't the way that they dreamed their lives would turn out. Sitting in a Denny's restaurant debriefing with old friends, us, they realized how far they had slipped. Tony and Ann are a couple from the Chicago suburbs, but they could be from Omaha or Council Bluffs or Bellevue or St. Louis. We met them while we were doing ministry in the suburbs of Chicago, and they were some of the very best small group leaders in the whole church. They were the kind of people who loved new believers, and new believers were attracted to them. So they always led new believer groups with people who didn't even know their way around the Bible when they got in, but when they got out of the group with Tony and Ann, they were wide-eyed, committed, passionate disciples of Jesus. We loved watching them in ministry, but we became friends with them because almost miraculously, they had 4 kids who matched our 4 kids in gender, order, and age. Boy, girl, same age. So we started hanging out with them. They chose to homeschool their kids because they wanted to have schedule flexibility, plenty of family time, and to raise their kids to know Jesus, and they made the sacrifices to make that happen. Now, Tony, he had a good job, enough to be able to pay the bills for a family of 6, but as he looked forward to college costs, he thought, it's 12, 13 years away, but I don't think, given the job that I have, I'm going to be able to save up $100,000 to send Bryant to even a state school. And when I think about trying to fund 4 kids going to college, I don't know how I'm going to do it. But Tony was really good at one thing. Tony was a good baseball player. As a matter of fact, Tony almost made his own college team, just missed it by a little bit. And he always thought, man, if his parents were able to sink a little bit more resources into his development when he was a kid and in high school, he might have made it to college and maybe even to the pros. But he wasn't going to make that same mistake with his own kids. He was going to make sure that they had every tool possible to be able to make it in the world that he wanted to make it when he was their age. Now, he knew that the odds were stacked against him. He knew that there's 2.6 million kids that play Little League baseball every year, and that only 1 out of 8 of those kids make it to their high school team. He knew that only 1 out of every 250 Little Leaguers ever makes it to play on a college team, and many of them don't even get scholarships. And he knew that the chances of a Little Leaguer making it to the major leagues is only 1 in 4,062. But he said, that's one of the reasons I want to give my kids every advantage to be able to make that happen. He wanted them to excel, to get out of the hump. So he decided to start doing batting practice with his kids in the backyard, to enjoy the time pitching together, time at the park, and they had a lot of fun together. It was a blast. The kids got a little bit older, and they were able to go into the leagues, and most of them played a year up from what their age was because they were so good, and they were still the best kid on their team. And their teams generally took home the trophies at the end of the year. Well, in order to accomplish this feat, leisure evenings around the table with fun in the backyard were traded in. Tony would come home from work, dash home as fast as he can, and would throw all of the right things into 2 different cars. They had to divide and conquer because there were 2 different kids in games nearly every night. They'd slam a burger down on the way home to the field, or on the way out to the field. The good news was that at least they got to know the first name of the girl who worked the Burger King drive-thru. The kids got really good. And obviously, they were invited to play on the elite teams starting at age 9. First of all, 45 games a year, then 60 games a year, then 70 games per year, times 2 kids, then times 3 kids. And sometimes I thought, poor Kelsey. I mean, she was the youngest of the 4 and spent most of her free time on the sidelines of baseball games growing up. That's how she spent her life. I mean, in the cracks, she played with her Nintendo DS, and she watched TV at home most of the time because everyone was so exhausted from work and chores and baseball. They figured as the kids were growing up that one elite travel team cost each kid about $4,000 per year when you add in gas and hotels and uniforms and meals and all of the team costs. And pretty soon their debt began to grow. Ann took on a job to fund the debt, and the kids went to public schools, cramping their family time even more. with all of the weekend tournaments, church became optional. I mean, these days, if you want to be on the team, you have to be willing to play on Sundays. And interestingly, they became a part of a growing trend that churches are seeing, and Christ Community is seeing as well, that kids, especially boys, are attending church less and less in 4th and 5th and 6th grades. And they're unhooking from the messages they heard there, and unhooking from the friendships that they found there, and unhooking from the truth that they learned there. And for Tony and Ann's kids, a message began to creep into the minds of the kids. It wasn't intentional. They would have never intentionally done this, but it was there subtly. And the message was, baseball is more important than church. That the team is more important than the body of Christ. Of course, Tony and Ann never said it. They never would say that, but they acted it. And it spoke volumes to their kids. Once their kids got to high school, the coaches told the players that they needed to work out with the team all summer long, and that anybody who misses a week of practice, even for summer vacation with their family, would not have a starting position on the team. And Tony was okay with that because he had already taken most of his vacation days in order to take his kids to weekend tournaments. So when we met them over a Grand Slam breakfast, we asked them the standard old friend questions, So how's your marriage? Ann spoke up. What marriage? We haven't invested in it for years. We fight a lot about our debt, and I wonder how we got here. Time to change the subject. So how's stuff at church? And we don't really know. The kids don't like the youth ministry, probably because they don't know anybody anymore. We rarely make it on Sundays, and we stopped volunteering a long time ago. Well, how are the kids doing? Bryant just got accepted at a D3 school for baseball. That was good news. No scholarship, but at least he gets to play in college. Samantha's the best player on her high school team already, but she struggles with academics. David, he's taken a year off from baseball, maybe more. He's actually the most talented of our 4 kids, but he's pretty burned out. He started getting some ulcer issues when he was 13 years old. And Kelsey, she's struggling with everything. She has significant behavior issues, and we just don't know what to do with her. And as I drove away, I wondered, would they do things differently 12 years ago if they knew what they knew today? Now, I need to tell you that Tony and Ann are a conglomeration of people they know. They aren't a specific couple. But every part of that story that I told you is true from couples that we know who are our age. And it's not just baseball that's the villain here. You can substitute in any time sucker that you want. Soccer, elite cheer, swing choir, a demanding job for parents, a hobby that turned into an obsession, an online gaming habit. All of these things can suck the life out of you. And don't get me wrong here. I'm not anti-sports or anti-music. My kids are in sports, and I was, and I value the experience. But at some point, kids' sports runs amok. At some point, the dedication level creates more costs than benefits. At sometimes you wonder, is this actually adding value to my life, or is it stealing value from my life? And I want to ask parents and singles and students and grandparents, anybody who's given themselves to the American lifestyle, what are the costs? What are the costs? Is this really the life that you want to live? Is this flourishing? Because it's easy just to drift in the American lifestyle, which is hassled and harried and driven. It's fast-paced and achievement-oriented. We could easily be considered the most blessed nation in the history of the world, and rightly so. But as individuals in that nation, the question I would ask is, are we flourishing?